Welcome to the Red Pen's Journey to College. We've been doing this event for probably over 10 years now, and with a little bit of breaks in COVID and different things like that, we did an online version, etc. So thank you so much for coming and joining us to meet our successful, outgoing, bright students who are we're really excited about their future. So we're excited to introduce them to you and also make everyone available to you for questions and for further understanding of how this all works and how you can sort of achieve your goals in this process. So yeah, once again, I'm Kim Dixit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen. So it's great to have you all here. My colleague Arnav Sharma will be hosting this panel, moderating the panel of students. I'm just going to say a little bit about the Red Pen for those of you who don't know. We have been working as independent education consultants in Mumbai for the last 15 years. So we are quite an established organization, and we've been, like I said, working in this industry, in this field, in this sort of professional services area for quite a long time. And we have got lots of track record behind us, a lot of experience. Some of that is highlighted here. But one of the things that's quite, I think, interesting is, when we started out a long time ago, it wasn't sort of as big as the business is now, as the whole sort of industry, I would say, is now. Lots of counselors, a lot of children going abroad, so things were very different. And we started very much as a US-focused, organization, sending, sitting in Mumbai, sending Indian kids to America. But now we are very, very global. We are ourselves a global team. We have counselors all over the world. We have most of our counselors in India, and I would say the majority of the India ones are in Mumbai, but we have also quite a big team in Delhi. So I think today we're not going to get really into that college application process much, but I wanted to just go over with you guys to help you understand that the process of applying to college and getting into the college of your top choice is something that, takes intention, right? It takes time, planning, intention, and the more you plan it and the more organized you are, the less stressful this process is. So I think a lot of people feel anxious or worried about this process, but it doesn't have to be that way, and that's what we're sort of here to help students do. I think these are just some of the things that we try to help families understand. Activities, talent, your academics, those are all important pieces, but they need to be in the context of you as a student, the application you're putting together, et cetera. So that's what we support families with, is just sort of getting that balance right and making sure that those are that all the things are kind of standing out in the right way. And the way that we do that is we have a team working with every student, and I think all the students here today can attest to that. They probably talk to more people than they ever imagined they would, but we have our academic mentor, lead counselor, a content specialist, which means somebody to help you with your essays. So for each student, we have at least those 3 people assigned and involved. And then we have a lot of specialists, depending on what your interests are. And then with our US News partnership, which happened last year, where we are partners with US News and World Report, which is a US-based media organization that, as many people know them, to publish the rankings. That is one of the things they do, but they do a lot of other things, and they have a lot of connections and industry insider information, which gives us access to the admissions officers who come into our students' process to give inputs from the inside, right? So you talk to somebody who's been an admissions reader at Stanford or Harvard or NYU or Columbia or wherever, and they will look at your application and say, this seems really strong to me, this is something that the college will like, this isn't clear or needs more attention, more activity around it. And so we get sort of a holistic view of that application before it kind of goes out into the process. So yeah, that's what we do at the Red Pen. And yeah, that's what I said, insight, collaboration, and expertise, and also, like I said, intention and planning. So if you are in the process thinking about your college application journey and you haven't started it yet, please get in touch with us. You all have the QR code to get in touch. But that's all I'm going to say about that today. I'm going to hand it over now to Arnav Sharma, who's our Chief Academic Officer at the Red Pen, and he is going to take you through this amazing panel of students that we have here with us today. Thank you.
Wow, this is going to be amazing. I'm so excited to speak to these outstanding students that we have here with us today and have them share their stories with all of you. So thank you everyone for coming, and without any further delay, let's bring our panel up on stage. Our first panelist is from Dhirubhai Ambani International School. She will be heading to Cambridge this fall. I can't see her right now. There she is, Isha Ghiwala. Fresh off an early morning flight from DPS Faridabad, heading to MIT this fall, the wonder kid, Arav Gupta. From Hillspring International School in Bombay, heading to Duke this fall, Anahi Reddy. Another early morning flight from Oak Ridge International, Hyderabad, Brown bound this month, Namrata Nanduru. From the Cathedral and John Connon School in Bombay, Stanford bound, Zanai Raghavan. Another Dhirubhai Ambani alum heading to LSE, Anya Shah. A third Dhirubhai alum heading to Columbia, this is the last one I promise, Arzu Maheshwari. Sorry. And from Aditya Birla World Academy, probably heading to LSE, I think, Sohani, right? Sohani Jain. What's up, guys? How are you?
Good. All good.
Namrata, how was the flight?
Good.
Arav?
Short.
Okay. Okay, so, this is obviously going to be today is going to be about these students sharing their journeys with you. But at least for me, this is more than just that. I think this is a celebration of all your incredible effort and achievements over all the years before you even got to a college admit. And I think I speak for everybody at TRP when I say that we feel really proud and also really lucky to have been part of your journeys. And we're really excited for you to share those journeys with everyone today. So I personally worked with 3 of you. I was your counselor, but I've heard so much about the others from your counselors that I feel like I know all of you just as well. So hopefully that makes for a really nice discussion. So we've actually structured the discussion itself like a journey where we will begin from the early stages of profile building in school and then work our way through the important extracurriculars and obviously the college selection, college applications, and essays and all of that. So let's go to the beginning, the point where you guys just started discovering your extracurriculars. And for probably a small fraction of students on this stage and overall, they get to figure out what they like early on. But that's not usually the process, right? You usually have to hop through many different activities before you settle on the one. And there is some trial and error. And Arzu, I think you talked about this really well in your Common App essay. That the essay was about kind of not really committing to many things as a young kid, as many of us had that experience. I definitely did, where we tried or dipped our feet in many different activities, didn't really like anything. So then, can you tell us a little bit about that, and how did engineering finally stick? What led you to engineering per se, and what was those early experiences with the activities like?
Yeah, so initially, I think until 9th, 10th grade, I was totally a humanities kid. I really thought I would apply for history, philosophy, something like that. So for me, ending up on engineering was really like a 180-degree switch completely. And I think around the change kind of started happening around 9th, 10th grade when the science we started learning in school became a lot more complex and became a lot more, intense. And I started just really enjoying it. And the more complicated it became, the more I started enjoying it and realizing that I really love science. Biology, chemistry, physics, math, all 4 I was just really enjoying in school. And I thought to myself, okay, do I really want to do humanities anymore? And so I started thinking, I was like, talking to a lot of people, seeing subjects that would allow me to keep studying math, chemistry, physics, biology, all of them. And that's how I kind of ended up on biomedical engineering, because it's something that incorporates all of these subjects. And so then, like, as I spoke about in my Common App essay, as a kid, I was someone who would just try everything. I wouldn't stick to a lot of them, but I liked trying everything. So when I decided biomedical engineering, I was like, okay, let me try it out. I still have time before I need to like decide exactly what I want to do with my life and what I want to apply for in college. And so I started researching biomedical engineering projects, things I could do. And I ended up doing a project, like I made a biomedical device. And that kind of gave me a lot of, that kind of really helped me understand that this is something I want to do, because I really enjoyed the process. It was like kind of dipping my toes into the field of biomedical engineering, and it's something I really enjoyed. So yeah, I would say try everything. Don't be too afraid that like, oh, I don't know what I want to do yet. So that I like just need to stick with one thing now. It's too late and I just need to stick with this and I'll apply to college with this. It doesn't matter. I would say try everything. Find what you really like, what you really enjoy. Because at the end of the day, it's all going to build some character, help you in some way, help you learn something new. Yeah.
Okay, so you preempted my next question. I was going to ask you about the walker, but I think, so you've talked about what the device was. Can you maybe share with us why did you want to work on that device specifically?
There was really no specific reason that I was inclined towards. So I made a gait rehabilitation walker, and obviously like as a 15-year-old kid, it's not like I had some passion towards gait rehabilitation specifically. I just kind of did a lot of research. I would spend just hours on my laptop finding problems, thinking of solutions. And initially when I started doing this, I found myself looking at I was looking for a medical problem. And I found myself seeing a lot of medical problems and being like, oh, well, like someone would have thought of a solution to this. There's no way there isn't someone. Someone smarter than me, someone better than me has probably already done this, already thought of it. And then that mindset kind of led me to just like disregard a lot of things. But if you want to be innovative, if you want to study engineering, that's not a mindset you can have. You have to think like, no, there's something I can do that's better. There has to be something I can do to help. Even at my like low level of expertise, I can think, I can ideate, and it doesn't hurt to like think of something new. So I did that, and slowly when like I adopted that mindset, I was able to look at a problem and think, oh, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that, and then I would research my solutions, current solutions, and see if this was a feasible thing for me to do. And that's sort of how I landed on this gait rehabilitation walker. It was an underappreciated issue, and obviously there were current solutions, there were existing solutions, but I thought like, what can I do to make it better as a student? What can I like offer to this field? And that's after like hours of research, reading research papers, talking to doctors, I finally landed on this idea of making a walker for gait rehabilitation of post-stroke patients suffering from hemiparetic gait. And it was the idea was to make something not too complicated, something that patients could use on their own without the assistance of a physiotherapist, something that they could use at home through their daily lives, instead of the current solutions which are more bulky, more complex, more expensive. And so I would say, yeah, just keep an open mindset, think about what you could do, and don't like disregard your own ideas, because you have like just a fresh mind has a lot of value to any problem.
And I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least touch on the fact that you did attend a really prestigious research program in your penultimate summer, actually your last summer break before grade 12, RSI India. Can you just tell us quickly what was that program like? What did you research there?
Yeah, so once I'd like finally decided after I finished this Walker project, I was like, okay, biomedical engineering is it for me, this is what I want to do. So I applied to the Research Science Institute, the program in India, and over there I was assigned to a lab, and I worked with a PhD student on tissue engineering. So we worked on scaffold fabrication for bone regeneration. And that was like a really great experience, because I got to work at university grade labs. I was working with PhD students who could teach me a lot about the field. So it was a really great experience, and yeah.
Okay, and I think we should also mention that you did win a nice honor there, a top 5 oral
presentation.
presentation.
So I think more than just the STEM part of it, I also learned a lot about presenting your research and confidence. And so yeah, I was awarded the top 5 oral presentations over there for presenting my research to a panel of professors.
So I think we'll try and counter the STEM dump now, Sohani, with you. So Sohani, MUN is a pretty popular extracurricular for a lot of students. Maybe 60 to 70% of students I've worked with have done MUN to some degree. But in my entire career of 15 years, I don't think anyone has done it that I know of has done it to the extent that you did it, right? You did something like 30 conferences, you founded a debating championship for 100 kids with, kids participate across 14 states. What was this journey through MUN like, and what prompted such deep participation and then actually creating this tournament for others?
Yeah, so what you said is definitely true, but like with MUN being one of the most popular extracurriculars you'll see in the average high schooler's profile. But for me, I saw it more than just building your CV or it building on your argumentation skills. So the reason why I took MUN so deep is because as a person, I decided to focus personally and through my application on the importance of public speaking. I think when you go up to somebody for the first time or when you're addressing a group of people for the first time, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you dress, first impressions build a really large part of how the other person views you and sort of your image in public. And that's what so my best friend and I started this organization, the one you referred to. It's called Next Gen Debaters. And we decided to focus on the importance of public speaking for general life through MUN and debate. And it's something I've been passionate about since a really young age. So when COVID started, I was in grade 6. So I started my MUN journey via online conferences. And I've always been somebody who talks a lot, or even at home, like has the silliest arguments. So I naturally gravitated towards MUN. And yeah, it's just the reason also why we decided to look at something all India is because it's a non-for-profit organization, and we wanted to inculcate and impart these public speaking skills in people that may not have these opportunities otherwise, because we're very privileged, right, to be even sitting here today or to be able to participate across India and just be presented with so many opportunities. And we felt that there's so much hidden talent amongst children that may not have these same financial opportunities. So yeah, that's why we even went that deep with the whole MUN public speaking agenda.
Interestingly, you also did research on how MUN impacts youth. So I know MUN itself, conferences themselves involve researching specific topics, but what prompted this research, and what was this research that you did into how MUN impacts youth?
Right, so it was a combination of primary and secondary research. My school has quite a large MUN club, so it included, so bits and parts included speaking to them and interviewing those kids, and the other bit was reading up online and existing research papers. But again, so what I wanted to do was set my profile apart. I didn't want to just tell the universities that, hey, I do MUN, look at me, like I can argue. It was to sort of represent my deep-rooted interest in why am I so interested in MUN? Why do I like debating international relations so much? And I'd say some of my findings were, of course, the public speaking argument. It really improves your people skills and your ability to present yourself in a room full of people. But also your leadership skills. Because when you go into a conference, you're surrounded by 60 other people. Each person's representing a different country. The person who ends up winning is the one that's able to walk into a room for the first time and command the room, right? So definitely people who do MUN, I think in general, whether you win the conference or not, just participating and putting yourself in that environment boosts your leadership skills and your public speaking skills as a person, which obviously is refined like the greater the number of conferences that you go to. So beyond the leadership and public speaking, another thing is, another finding I had from MUN is that, it increases your awareness of contemporary international relations issues and global conflicts that are happening, which I think is very, very important given the, I'd say the increase in the number of conflicts globally that we're seeing in 2026. Yeah.
All right, super. Thank you, Suhani. Anahi, I want to come to you now. Your eventual interest obviously was biology, and I think you did research, probably slightly advanced research, earlier than a lot of students. So you did this research in grade 10 on the neurological effects of music. What inspired this? Like, was there an interest in music? It's pretty niche, so I was curious as to why you chose to do this.
So I realized that I was interested in STEM early on, and research is an essential part of it, so I thought it'd be better to delve into that earlier on. And I didn't really have a starting point, so I took one of the interests that I've had growing up, which was music, and then I kind of explored that and tried to see how I could connect it to something in STEM, which was the neuroscience. But I think it was really helpful to start research early on because it helped me understand two things. One, that I was interested in research, which kind of validated that I could go into STEM and study in that field. But then it also clarified that neuroscience wasn't something I was really interested in. And realizing that early on helped me kind of switch gears to more biochem, and then I could focus my more advanced research that I did in 11th and 12th towards that.
So let's discuss that briefly. You did, I would say, pretty advanced research for a high school student in 11th and 12th. One was on the gut microbiome, the correlation between that and diabetes, and then you did one on genetic predisposition to Parkinson's. Again, how did those come about? And I think something that a lot of students want to know is how do you get opportunities to do such research?
So both these research projects were parts of internships with actual companies that specialized in these fields. And I think it was extremely helpful that both of these are also niche topics and quite specific. And that was helpful to both me and my application because it showed something incredibly focused, and that I think can set you apart than doing something more generic. And what I really enjoyed about both of these research experiences is that they connected to application, because I think research can feel really theoretical sometimes and you may not see like the real life application or purpose of it, but both these projects used real life data and connected to an actual issue or like a healthcare issue, and that's what really like strengthened both these experiences for me.
Okay, and again, I want to mention, as I did for Arzu in your case, that you did get a bronze in the British Biology Olympiad, which was one of the main accolades that we mentioned in your application. Okay, great. Zanai, so your path is a little different to the other panelists in that you had this really sort of elaborate and involved passion for sports, and that kind of predates your academic interest. So unlike the others, can you tell us a bit about this journey through sports and what sports you liked?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I've played sports since I was a kid. The sports I played over the years has changed a lot. I definitely narrowed it down over the years. I think when I was maybe 7 or 8, I was playing 5 or 6 sports. And then as my academics grew progressively harder, I obviously had to drop them. And then finally throughout high school, I was mainly playing athletics and football. Like I run track, I'm a sprinter. And yeah, I was playing for the school football team and also club football.
What was it like? Because obviously your academics also throughout have been very strong, as is evidenced in your eventual admit. So how difficult was it to balance academics as a high-level student athlete?
Yeah, so like I said, I definitely had to drop sports as I went up in grades. But I stuck with 2 and I managed to achieve them to quite a high level. So I think it wasn't too hard once I figured out that these sports and academics are the 2 things I need to focus on, and I don't really need to focus on anything else. I didn't need to focus on anything else at the moment. It also really helped that the sports had seasons, so there were seasons where I had to be really into them, which were luckily at the opposite end of the year as my exams. So they never conflicted per se.
Got it. Eventually though, it was your interest in sports, swimming specifically, that led you to kind of your crowning activity, engineering activity on your application. So can you tell us a bit about that, how that came about?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I swam when I was younger, but I stopped swimming. But what happened was that I had like a athletics injury, so I went to the pool for rehab, and I saw one of my teammates who was from my swim club, and he'd lost his eyesight due to a tumor, and so he was struggling in the water to like find swimming again after his injury. So that kind of inspired me to start building my device to help him navigate in the pool, and that was kind of what started me on my journey.
Not only did you do this engineering device to help, again, visually impaired swimmers navigate lanes in a pool, you also kind of built a multidisciplinary research story around this, where you did some economics and policy-oriented research, which is very interesting for kind of an engineering student in grades 11 and 12 to undertake. So again, what inspired that and what did you research?
So as I was like building this device, and as it was progressing, I also had to start thinking about the majors that I was going to apply for. And so at some schools, there's a major that combines engineering and economics into like this interdisciplinary field. And so I realized that while the device would like show my interest in the engineering field, I didn't really have much to say about the economics. But the economic viability of the device was also extremely interesting. So then I decided to write a research paper about how the economics of why there aren't more devices like this, like that exist currently, and why like an 18-year-old is the first person to like build a device to help visually impaired swimmers.
Okay. And again, I want to point out that for Devis, for the swimming aid device, you did win a Crest Gold, and also you won some accolades at the WSRO, right? So again, the reason I'm highlighting all of these awards is we keep telling students that doing great activities is important, but getting them externally validated in the form of Olympiad medals or Crest Award or RSI, a prestigious summer program, that is equally important to kind of prove your mettle to an admissions officer who may not understand the technical specifications of your engineering projects. Okay, so Namrata, Anya, and Isha, you again, the three of you are non-STEM, and I feel like your extracurricular trajectories began in very similar ways. There was MUN. I think Anya, you spoke at MUN, and Isha and Namrata, you kind of did writing, like the press at MUN. Artistic expression, dance, and eventually though, those interests kind of diverged. So Namrata, I'll start with you first. Writing, as you told me, corrected me a couple of days ago, has been kind of a lifelong passion of yours. Eventually, it kind of led you towards creative expression in different areas. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I've always loved writing since I was a kid when I read like Harry Potter for the first time. So from then, I always knew that I wanted to write, I wanted to be creative. But I started doing a lot of other sort of forms of expression once I got to high school, and it happened very organically. I didn't really think about it as, oh, I like writing, so I should do this. I started with dance when I was in 8th grade. It was actually something that my mom was really keen that I do, and I really fell in love with the storytelling part of it. I got to perform multiple times, and I did kuchipudi, which is a dance form which is like very much about storytelling. So it started with that, and then I started doing acting in school in the production, and I was an actress, and when I was acting, I actually started liking the directing aspect even more, writing the script and how dialogue and movement sort of come together to tell a story. So I tried really hard to get selected as the director for the school production, and that ended up happening in 10th grade, and I continued that in high school. So it happened very organically. I started doing all the things that I was passionate about and that I found interested. And in retrospect, it's easy to say that it was because my overarching interest is communication and storytelling. But at the time, it was very much just doing what I was passionate about. And it all definitely did stem from how much I love to tell stories and communicate with people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So storytelling obviously is kind of an overarching theme here. We do these internal audits at TRP every year, and we see, which students sort of get in at higher rates to certain colleges than others, what activities seem to be getting in at higher rates. And students with strong involvement in writing seem to have disproportionately high success rates at like top 30 schools. So we obviously know that writing definitely helps regardless of your major, whether it's STEM or non-STEM. You actually started your own magazine called Reveal.
Yes.
This is someone starting a magazine or a publication or like a blog is not uncommon, but your counselors, Jayashree and Gayatri, made sure to point out to me that no, this was really very, very serious for Namrata, and she took it to a greater extent or a greater depth than many other students perhaps would. So can you tell us a bit about that, and what was your mission through this magazine?
Yeah, so I started my magazine in 10th grade for high school students to contribute, and it was called Reveal, and what I wanted to do was give students a platform where they could share their opinions on social issues and how they relate to school life, because we have other magazines in my school, but they're more sort of creative and personal. It's sort of just something that people just join almost for fun. I wanted to give a platform which was obviously enjoyable and exciting, but something where students can delve into issues that are really important to them and connect it back to student life. And when I started that, my mission was just to really create something that was interesting for people to read. I think now, honestly, in society, I feel like reading and writing are almost like a dying art. And I really wanted to create a publication where people were excited to read and excited to create and really wanted to be a part of it, because it's like giving their opinion on the things that they were interested in and that mattered to them. So that's how it started, and I think, yeah, I think it was pretty successful because I had a lot of my juniors in school who would come up to me and ask, can I be part of the editorial board next year? Like, I want to do this, I want to do that. So it really kind of expanded beyond me, and now it's in its 3rd year, and I'm not even involved with it anymore. It's my juniors that run it.
So it's going to survive your departure from school?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's amazing. I think that's important. That kind of establishes that you weren't just in it to pad your college application. Ironically, we only get to know once the applications are done, but at least it tells everybody in this room. Okay, you also did win some journalism awards at your school's Oak Month, so again, I wanted to point that recognition out. Anya, your initial interests were MUN, theatre, and Brown Square, but eventually, obviously, the major you applied for and will be studying at college is economics related. So where did this interest get sparked, economics, from these initial?
I think I'm studying economics and economic history, but my interest started in history. I took IGCSE history in the 9th and 10th grade. I knew very early on I wasn't a STEM kid. Physics was not for me. And it started with history, and then I was doing MUN, so through that I got an introduction to economics and politics, and that was really what stood out to me. And so my profile was built quite like Namrata, quite organically. I did MUN and Brown Square solely because I just wanted to participate in school activities. And from there, theatre was always just something I enjoyed, and it was a creative outlet for me in a more academic environment for sure. And then and then it was my first internship. So I did a legal internship between my 10th and 11th grade. I was thinking of doing law. I've definitely jumped ship many times as to what I want to do, but law was kind of where I started. And there they were doing what they call is, they were doing research on gig workers case. So urban company was in a legal matter where their workers were trying to get better rights, because also a lot of these digital workers don't really have a classification under any of India's in India's legal system, because they're not contract workers, neither are they employees. So there's a lot of ambiguity in that space, and with that comes a lot of human rights violations and workers' violations, and that's where my interest stemmed, because I wanted to look at the economics of it. And then when I learned about labor laws and labor rigidities in IB, that's where I was able to bring all my interests together. And then in my summer between my 11th and 12th grade, I was an intern. I was a writing intern at the Observer Research Foundation, and I wrote my research article on labor laws and how other countries like Chile and Spain have introduced labor laws to fix this issue, and what India can do and what India is doing, because there have been some actions taken in the Karnataka High Court and the Rajasthan High Court.
Awesome. So one thing, I know your initial interest was history, but then eventually, we discussed, what you applied for was economics. One thing that economics students and counselors of economics students struggle with a little bit is getting that external validation. There aren't that many well-known, prestigious Olympiads and competitions, but one that we do know of course, is this prestigious Northwestern Economics Tournament, and you were a semi-finalist at this tournament. So can you tell us a bit about that? What does it entail?
Yeah, so I came across the same issue as well. A lot of the economics tournaments, by the time I realized I wanted to do econ, the deadline had passed, and the Northwestern Economics Tournament was the most recent one. And I literally just found it by Googling things, and it was a phenomenal competition. So the NET has a group round. It has what's called a power round, and it has a math round. I don't know the exact name. It can't come to mind right now. And so we did both rounds, and we were semi-finalists in what is called the Power Bowl round, where it's sort of a buzzer, like it's who can guess first. And it's a phenomenal tournament because we were tested on micro, macro, econometrics, which is not something you even study at a school level, but we had done our research, we knew the basics. And I think the math round is what really shows you what university econ is like, how there's the math behind the interest rates and how that plays into the inflation rate, versus micro, where how business decision makers how businesses and other decision makers use numbers and stats to kind of obviously make their decisions and policies. And it was really fascinating to me, and it made me realize that I did enjoy the math part of econ, which is actually what university econ is like more than high school economics, I would say. And the NATA is just a great experience to, as a student, help you realize what you like about economics and what you don't, and if you even like economics at that level.
Okay, super. Isha, again, the origins of your extracurriculars were similar to Namrata and Anya, but your eventual interest, psychology, was a bit further out. So how did you go from these activities like MAN and all of that to psychology?
Yeah, so I hadn't really started out. I mean, when I started high school, I thought I saw psychology, the IB. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then once I actually started, studying about psychology in school, I also had the opportunity to read like books about psychology outside of that. I also did some internships and observerships, and then I kind of got a feel of the subject because initially I was leaning more towards, sort of bio-chem kind of route. And I realized that psychology actually kind of sat at the intersection of what I personally find the most interesting, which is, human behavior, but then also the brain biology behind that behavior, and then also the environment that you're in, which, and psychology for me was kind of like a scientific way to not just understand the human experience, but I think also to improve it, which is something, of course, I'm excited to do at university. So, and I think, all of my activities that I had done, whether it was MUN, there was TEDx, it was just different, a lot of school involvement. I think it all also realized that something I enjoy is also working with people, communicating ideas with people and, working in teams and just, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm a people person that way. So psychology just, I don't know, it happened very organically and naturally, and it's something I landed on towards the end of, yeah.
So then when you decided to explore this, you obviously, you deduce that it's a logical thing to pursue given your interests. When you start to pursue this formally, you do an internship at Raheja Hospital. Was it shadowing? Did you actually get to speak to people? What did you learn through this experience?
So I did do like an observership where I did observe a clinical psychologist, but this was kind of more like a sort of learning experience where there was a clinical psychologist at the hospital. It was at the Fortis, I think, mental health care unit at that hospital. We had the opportunity, and it was an opportunity I got through school actually. And so we had the opportunity to learn about different aspects of psychology, whether it's like, clinical interviewing or social psychology, even abnormal psychology, mental health. And at the end of it, we had to produce this kind of, project at the end, which was, it could be some like your own personal project. So I had done sort of a literature review on how social comparison and conformity, it affects teen, like adolescent anxiety. And that was something I got to present at the end. And so it was a really nice learning experience, yeah.
But then you did slightly more advanced research after that, right? You did research on cognitive bias, which is relevant especially now. So how did you come upon this topic, and can you tell us a bit about this research?
Yeah, so we started learning about cognitive biases in school, and there was a book that I'd read, it was by Tversky and Kahneman, so Thinking Fast and Slow, and that sort of introduced me into the concept of biases, and I found it really interesting because, so I'm coming from a very competitive academic environment, right? Our school was pretty intense, and so I saw really capable students around me that, I thought were extremely capable and intelligent, but I still found them, kind of underestimating themselves at times, or finding, certain small setbacks, they took them as examples of like, larger failures. And so I studied how these students with academic anxiety, specifically in academic or exam environments, they become more prone to these cognitive biases, which then creates this sort of feedback loop or cycle, which makes them more prone to stress. And that whole process, it kind of taught me that psychology is not just, it's much more interdisciplinary than I thought. You need a lot of knowledge about neuroscience, about statistics, about environment. And, because when I was doing it, I looked at a lot of different factors like, parenting, like social circles, your school environment, whether there's like ranking systems in school, and there's a lot of stuff that can actually play a role into it as well. So, yeah.
I'm sure that gave you a lot of rich material to use for your eventual UCAS personal statement and interviews. We'll get to that. Yeah. I also want to point out here that the depth of your academic recognition in school was really impressive. You won a lot of school recognition and awards for academic performance, and uniquely for a humanities student, you also got World Rank 1 in University of Waterloo's Avogadro exam. So I think just attempting that for a non-STEM or a non-engineering student is something remarkable, and getting that as a psych student is quite nice. Arav, your journey is a bit different from everybody else's because you discovered your passion much earlier, right? Of course, we know a lot of the accolades you have. We won't get into that right now. But tell us a bit about when and how you discovered this interest and aptitude for math initially.
So like I think that the idea was that mathematics was not a subject of rote memorization or of it was basically a thing which you could which you could imagine discovering on your own. Like everything seemed to make sense, everything seemed to follow a logical pattern. So that is why the started used to just click, and eventually I think as I went deeper I used to grow more and more of an interest. I think I used to find beauty in the sort of, you can say, in that difficulty of the or the complexity of problems.
What grade level are we talking about here? What, first, second?
Big range, you can say,
initially,
all throughout, grade 1 to grade 8, let's say.
So complexity of math was being appreciated in grade 1.
I mean,
so
I'm
just playing with you. But yeah. I want to ask this though. Obviously, you eventually over years, and again, the fact that it started in grade 1 kind of highlights how difficult the journey and long the journey was, and how much commitment it takes to actually get accolades. You want to say something?
I mean, not particularly. It wasn't it's not like I was doing very intense mathematics at grade 1.
But
it was
you
just
discovered an interest.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to point out is that this is getting success in Olympiads or international Olympiads is something that is the result usually of many years of hard work, and not everybody would have that level of interest. So I guess we get a lot of kids in grade 7 and grade 8 who ask us about IOQM or the equivalent exams for sciences. What are some indicators that young students or parents of very young students can look out for that would tell them that, okay, this is something that they might want to pursue in say grade 7 or 8?
I think that if someone immediately gets excited by the idea of that these are some problems, you have never seen them before and you have no idea how to solve them, you have to think about it on your own. If that excites them, then that is a good indicator of whether it should be.
Okay, so that's an indicator of your interest. Is there any way that maybe one can indicate an aptitude for Olympiad style of mathematics? Not caliber maybe, but just the style.
I would say that's very difficult. I would say that I'm not aware of any thing which you could use to.
So another thing that I want to touch on is, again, you like math from a very young age. You actually formally started attempting Olympiad math from grade 8, right? And in the first 2 years that you attempted, despite having been committed to this subject for several years, you didn't actually get past the first round. Getting an IMO gold medal is like a 5-stage process, and you didn't clear the first stage the first 2 years that you did it. And then the third year, you clear the first 3 stages. You make it to the camp where the top 60 students of India assembled to compete for one of 6 spots in the Indian team, and you ended up 7th. And so you just missed the Indian team in your third year. And now the fourth year, you can't pick up right there where you left off. You can't go right back to camp. You start all over again. So my question is, and this is kind of similar to setbacks that many students may face, whether they're doing research, whether they're doing sports. What kind of attitude or resilience do you need to have? How do you get yourself to kind of be motivated to reattempt something where you got very far and didn't get far enough?
I think that it's basically the love of the game. It is the idea that it is the thrill or the challenge that you face that truly excites you. So that is the reason I wanted to continue. And I think towards the end of grade 10 when I nearly made the India team, that was a very strong positive reinforcement that I was actually able to learn something, and I was able to grow from where I started from.
So the reason I asked you is, of course, you and I have discussed this on a podcast, so we've done all of these questions, but I think you point out something that's pretty useful, which is that if you get very far but don't get far enough, it's more important to actually focus on how far you got and the positives that you got out of that experience rather than dwelling too much on maybe not getting your ultimate goal.
I mean, yeah, this is a very novel thing which not a lot of people are even aware of, let alone they get an opportunity to do so. And in fact, I am aware of a lot of situations where people would want to do this, but due to some or the other circumstance, they are not able to pursue this.
Okay.
So due to that reason, the fact that you have the opportunity to pursue this and you have been able to get something out of it, that is in itself a very rewarding thing.
And then, of course, in your fourth attempt, you make the camp as you did in the third one. You this time make the team, and then you went all the way to the IMO in Australia and you won the gold medal. So this is now in grade 11, and you started Olympiad, sort of attempting Olympiads in grade 8, although you probably started attempting high-level math a little bit before that. So what was that feeling like, the culmination of years of hard work, finally getting that?
Like it was pretty satisfying. I think that like over the journey I had like been able to like explore a lot of different areas of mathematics, been able to like solve a lot of problems, find out about a lot of techniques, and meet other people who are equally, if not more, passionate about these things. So that was like a very like high moment of my life, you can say, at that point.
Awesome. And I do want to point out that Arav also qualified for the Indian IMO team this year. He was representing us in Shanghai 2 weeks ago, and he won his second gold medal, just a couple of weeks ago. So congratulations, Arav, on that. Okay, so I actually want to shift gears from general profile building right now to school involvement. We talk to our students about this every year because colleges, whenever they tour India or they do webinars, they keep they cannot overstate the importance of being an involved member of your school community. And we know from our admit results that students with similar credentials, if you have 2 students with similar credentials, the one with deep involvement in their school or who tried to make a difference in their school really did go far. So I want to talk to a couple of you about this. Anahi, you pursued leadership positions from a relatively younger age. I mean, you were assistant prefect in grade 9, house captain in grade 10, and then head girl in grade 11. So what is something that, like, what motivated you to pursue these positions? What did you enjoy about doing them? What did you learn about your own capacity for leadership?
I think leadership positions came slightly naturally to me, which is why even at a younger age, I felt like I was ready to delve into that. And I think what was important about joining the student council was the consistency and commitment. As you mentioned, it was every year, like I tried to kind of reach higher than the position I was the year before, and leading me to like my final goal. And I think another thing that made my leadership roles impactful is kind of trying to make the most of the opportunities you could get in each role, even if you're at a lower level, taking the task that you're given and kind of trying to excel in that gave me the confidence and opportunity to progress further on and be as involved as I could.
Okay, so you bring up a good point, because we know that leadership roles are important. Titles are less important. So colleges tell us whether you're head girl or house captain or head boy or sports captain, the title is less important. What's more important is the impact you made. So what was your mission? Did you have one as head girl? What are specific things that you pursued, even if it was just one thing that you did as head girl?
So something I wanted to do was try and connect my student leadership to my academic interests, which were biochem focused. So how I went about this was I reinstated the high school science bowl, and I think that was a strong element because it connected leadership with something else in my application, and that also helped me learn a lot about communication and planning and involvement, because it was completely led by me. There were no teachers to help me or anything else. So I think that taking your leadership position and combining it with something else meaningful that you're passionate about is a good way to make an impact.
Okay. Namrata, so Gayatri and Jayashree, when I did my call with them about coming up with these questions, also were quick to point out to me that you must ask Namrata. She was really involved in her school through her writing endeavors.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I was pretty involved in my school from the beginning of high school, from 9th grade. So it started with my school magazine. So I was a journalist for 2 years, then managing editor, and then editor-in-chief in 12th grade. I also started my own magazine. I was involved in theater. I spoke at TEDx events. So I did pretty much everything that I could in school. And I think, again, like I spoke about before, it did happen very organically because it was all things that I was very interested in doing, all of my passions. That kind of just manifested through the activities that my school provided. And yeah, I think it was very fun. I loved working with people, and yeah, it was very enjoyable.
I also want to ask you that there's this notion amongst students, definitely sometimes even counselors, that if somebody is shy or introverted, they probably wouldn't like or wouldn't succeed at school positions, leadership positions, or getting involved in school activities. Is that true?
No, I mean, I don't think it is, because whether you're outgoing as a person, I think shouldn't impact how outgoing you are in terms of the things that you apply for. There's a lot of people that I know that didn't even apply for a lot of things because they felt like, oh, like, I'm not going to get it. I'm not this kind of person. But I think always just give it a go. Put yourself out there. And a lot of, like, for example, my school magazine, I think you can do very well and you can, take things very far without being a very outgoing person. Let your talent and your work speak for itself.
Okay. So you can make a difference even if you aren't super social or extroverted.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that I want to just touch upon is, because it's pretty relevant for a lot of students, these last few years of high school can be very taxing, especially when there is this specter of college applications constantly hanging over you and over your parents. So, stress management, load management becomes pretty crucial. Out of what we haven't discussed and we will not really get into today is the fact that in addition to Olympiads, you are also doing IIT prep. My question though is, that obviously means that you are juggling a pretty heavy load on both sides. So what advice could you share with students who, like you, are attempting ambitious goals and have a lot of work and sometimes may feel burnt out or saturated? How can they stay motivated?
Okay, so I think that I will say something that I might not have followed completely, but now looking back, I wish I had probably done that. Again, I will reuse a phrase that I used earlier today, that rather than chasing the glory and the you can say the success or the ranks or whatever, I think just do things for the love of the game and the thrill of or the challenge of doing something or just for fun, just for the vibes, we can say maybe. Yeah, rather than for some particular end goal.
You also said something interesting, is that initially, you said yourself right now, you didn't follow this, and we discussed this in some of your essays also, is that initially you were quite competitive and hard on yourself if you didn't get, say, the outcome you wanted. But you noticed something in your fellow math teammates, what was that observation you made, and that the ones who were less competitive or who were chasing the ring less ultimately did better?
Yeah, something like that. I think that for them, the idea of these, that you have team selection tests which you appear for was quite normalized. So they did not stress too much upon that. They were more involved in enjoying the journey and enjoying the training camp and all those factors.
Namrata, what about you again? We've discussed how many different things you were pursuing in school. Was there ever a feeling of burnout? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of inevitable when you're doing so many things at once. It was definitely a struggle for me, especially around the time when college applications were due. I really was feeling it then because I also had my midterms. The ways that I would try and deal with it were prioritizing things by week and month, figuring out what had to get done at certain checkpoints or benchmarks that I would set, and also breaking things down into very small, actionable goals so that you don't feel like, oh, this is this huge thing that I have to do right now. It's more of small tasks that you can complete one by one. And that really helped me stay on track and not feel overwhelmed with how many things that I had to do. It was more, get this done, then work on this, then work on this. So it also gave me motivation because every time I finished something, I would then feel excited to the next one. So yeah, I think, getting into that productivity cycle is important.
So maybe being a little bit disciplined with your time?
Yeah, definitely. I think time management and organization are super important.
Okay. I know we didn't discuss this, but I know this because it's in your essays, and I think it's important to share with everyone that you talked about how sometimes when you're chasing multiple goals and both are ambitious and both are important to you, you have to make peace with the fact that at different times you will sort of prioritize one over the other, and then the other you will see suboptimal results, and you have to make your peace with that. So you want to just say a little bit about that, because I think it will really help students to know that technique.
That is something that actually I would say that ends up not necessarily happening all the time. Now what I feel is that your performance is not necessarily related to the amount of time you are devoting at any particular time. It is more a random variable in some sense, it depends on a lot of other factors, And
But nonetheless, being okay with sometimes getting suboptimal results in one thing if you're doing multiple things.
yeah, but again, like that, I think even if you're just focusing on one thing, you should, that is a necessary factor, because like even if you do not like miss out due to like focusing on something else, you can miss out due to any of these other factors that like might affect performance.
Okay, okay. So I think we've done a pretty deep dive into everybody's profile building. I want to move into now the actual college application process, and we'll start with the college selection or the college listing process as we refer to it at TRP. Zanai, your deliberations on where to apply early kind of stretched into September, October, and at different points there was Stanford, Penn, and Columbia all in consideration for that early application. So how did Stanford finally get the nod?
So yeah, like you're right, Arnav. I was debating between Stanford, Penn, and Columbia for a really long time, up until I think even a week or two before the deadline. And what really narrowed it down for me in the end was I'd visited all three campuses the summer before, and I'd really loved all three. And for me, like things like geography weren't really a factor. I think I found myself enjoying, even though all three are very different, I found myself enjoying them all. But what really narrowed it down for me was that at Stanford, it offered me two things. There was one, complete academic flexibility, where Stanford itself isn't divided into multiple different schools, like a school of engineering or a school of arts and sciences. So that would have been way more flexible, which is what I really liked. And the second was that it had the specific major that I really wanted, which was the interdisciplinary one between engineering and economics called Science, Technology, and Society.
My next question was actually going to be about the course you chose, because it was, your intention with a lot of applications was engineering, but you found this really unique blend at Stanford called STS. And did you mention that earlier, you touched on the econ research you did. Was that research reverse engineered when you found this program, or did you find the program after you did the research?
Oh yeah, the research was definitely reverse engineered. I just figured out that I didn't really have much interest. I hadn't displayed much interest in economics, and it didn't make sense to apply for an economics adjacent major, like an interdisciplinary major, if all my activities fall into one category. So I definitely reverse engineered that a bit.
Okay. Anya, your top three admits span three different geographies, right? There's the US, the UK, and France. So what were the college discussions with Shivani like?
It's, to think about it is a bath down memory lane. I think we were debating my college list starting about June, July, and my list was being debated up till, I changed my list 2 weeks before I applied for my regular rounds. So I was constantly, for me, it was definitely more of a, as you go through the process, you make changes and adapt it. So I had a set list. I knew I wanted to do 5 universities in the UK, max out my options on UCAS. And I knew I wanted to do Georgetown early. And from there, my US list was, I would say it was either super ambitious or safeties. I didn't have this kind of middle ground in the US.
Don't say that. Please, you're giving them the
no,
wrong idea.
it's because I wanted to go to the UK the most. So I knew that even if I got UCL, I would go there over most of my US safeties. And then I came across this Sciences Po program, which is a Sciences Po Columbia dual program, where you do 2 years in France, 2 years at Columbia. And it really fascinated me. So I decided, okay, let's add this to my list. Then I had Ashoka, because my family was really keen on me having an India safety. I think it's a really good option as well. Ashoka's application process is very holistic, so it doesn't gear towards you giving too much of yourself on either end, either for the entrance test or the interview. And I applied to Singapore. I can't tell you why, I just did apply to Singapore. I think my mom wanted me to actually the most. And my list, I can tell you, just like how I'm describing this journey, my list was adapted to this journey. I had a set list, and then in October, I applied to Oxford. And after that, I sent in my other UK applications. Then I applied to Georgetown early. And luckily for me, in end of November, I got my offer from UCL. I was very fortunate to get my offer earlier. And I took off, and I was like, okay, if I get UCL, I'm probably going to go here. And I took off about 4 universities off my US list, and I ended up in my regular decision round only applying to, I think I ended up only applying to Princeton in by my regular decision. So I think, and this was my main fear when I was in July last year, is my list had to be set in stone. Your list really does not need to be set in stone. Your application is going to change, especially if you're focused on the UK. There are rolling offers, so you really never know when you're going to get an offer. And you have to be open to it changing, because I was going to apply to Barnard up till my second week of December, and then I decided, okay, I don't want to do Barnard anymore. And also, a big thing is when you look at that RD essay list for the US, it really scares you. And if you're sure about things, then follow your gut. I think that's the biggest thing. I had a million options. I had Vanderbilt, UMich, Ann Arbor. I had so many options in my list, and I just went with my gut. And also, a big thing when you're deciding your list, really focus on what the university's focus is, because you want to go to a university that is catered to your interests, and you'll meet like-minded people, and you will have the resources you need to thrive.
Okay. If you think yours was frayed, you should listen to Suhani's. I think befitting an international relations student, I think, Suhani, you applied to the maximum number of colleges on this panel. And incidentally or ironically, that was actually due to global affairs. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was quite difficult for me to craft my college list because my school has a cap on the number of universities you can apply to at 14. Despite that, I somehow managed to apply to 7 different geographies across the globe, spanning from the US, UK, Middle East, Europe, India, Singapore, and Australia. And this was primarily because of, there were 2 factors, primarily because of the rising geopolitical tensions. I fell victim to this, in fact, as soon as I secured my seat at NYU Abu Dhabi. As we know, there's currently a war that has erupted in that area. So I was not able to take that offer. But yeah, because of these kind of factors, I looked to apply across the globe. And the second reason why I chose to do this was because I wanted to take my time and scope out the prospects and the economies of these different locations across the globe, especially because that is the sphere that my major will correspond to. So yeah.
Okay, got it. So, and I believe the deliberation still isn't complete, or is it now cemented?
No, it is still not complete. I use the process of elimination to settle on the last 2 universities that I'm choosing between, which are LSE and the University of Melbourne. Although I will probably be taking my seat at LSE, the reason why I kept the University of Melbourne in contention, which is kind of unconventional, not many people choose to go to Australia. But the reason why I'm still, to a small extent, considering this option is because some of the factors that are important to me is, A, I want to work while I'm doing my undergrad. And I found that Australia had a slightly more relaxed and balanced lifestyle, which would allow me to work more while pursuing my undergrad degree. And also, the Australian markets are doing relatively better in comparison to some of the other geographies currently. So thinking a bit ahead, I was sort of, still considering Australia.
Thank you. That's pretty relevant information for everyone here to know, because many of the attendees here will be making those same decisions in short order. I want to actually move into the applications now. Arzu, I now look at your application as kind of a model of how like an engineering student should present their activities, because you managed to retain all the technical depth of your May, your Walker, and your bone regeneration research at RSI, while still making it accessible to a non-STEM reader. So was this conscious? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so this was definitely something that required a lot of effort, because in your essays are going to be read by admissions officers who are not experts in STEM and who are not going to fully understand the scope of your research. And I had done very technical research with both my Walker and at RSI. So I think I would write down what I did as simply that as I could explain it, and then I would have a lot of people read it, including like content specialists. Arnav would help, and I would have my family read it, and everyone would pinpoint like, okay, I'm not really sure what that means, could you explain that further, like what did this really entail? And doing that, I would kind of explain it so that the maximum number of people could understand fully what I did. And in some places, like, yeah, some people are not going to understand a few words you use, a few terms you use, and you kind of have to deal with that fact, because admissions officers are not going to be experts in the subjects that you're studying. But I think the main thing is just explaining, like if you're passionate about it, you're going to be able to talk about it a lot. So just explaining it in a way that's like why I did it and how I did it and what I learned from it.
And the college you ED to Columbia, incidentally, is the only Ivy League that offers the option to upload a maker portfolio, right? You get to actually, for future applicants, Columbia will let you upload documentation with like schematics of your engineering projects or code that you've done. So how did you utilize this option?
Yeah, so the maker portfolio is a feature I really loved about the Columbia application because it allowed me to get fully technical, show them the complete scope of my project. So I used my walker, I used the maker portfolio to show them the work I did on my smart walker. And I was able to upload my CAD models, I was able to upload, you're able to upload 4 files. Basically, I was able to upload my CAD models, my research, my complete research paper, and my like snippets of my code as well. So I think, and the maker portfolio is the only part of your application where like the admissions officers look at it first, and they are also allowed to consult faculty on it. So a faculty member who works in a similar field can also look at your project and kind of see that, okay, this is something that's like legitimate. So this is where I was able to get fully technical and fully show the scope of my project, and because I knew that it would also be able to be seen by someone who understands the field. So I took full advantage of it and I uploaded as much as I could. And definitely for STEM students, I think this is a really useful feature where you can show them, you can tell them that like, okay, I built this and I did this, but this is where I was able to show them the amount of work I put into it, like the pages of code, all of the CAD models. So it's definitely a feature you should take full advantage of.
Okay. I want to move into essays now. Isha, you, I'm told, is one of the most skilled writers we had in the last cycle. Your content expert, I think Elisha is here, apparently told Shivani that she didn't know what to do with your essays because they were already so good. So it's unfortunate that you didn't end up applying too much to the US where you could have fleshed out this writing skill a little bit more. But I'm curious to know, how did you approach the personal statement? We know for Cambridge, getting the PS right is very, very important. So and they just, I think was last year, the first year they changed the format to questions. So how did you approach that personal statement?
So I think it's very important because, the personal statement for the UK, it's not, you don't have to be very creative about it. It's more about just honest reflection rather than like dramatic storytelling or, So you have to kind of create a narrative of all of your experiences, and you have to kind of show or, provide evidence that A, you're prepared to study what you're applying for, B, you have a genuine interest in it, and, you have motivations and what your motivations are, and then just what the reasons are behind your motivations, and, how you've kind of gone about it, how you've explored it from different avenues, you've gone outside of school curriculum. And so, yeah, basically how I approached it was, it's kind of, I don't want to say a brag sheet, but because you have to write it, of course, in a way that's, different, but you kind of have to look at all your experiences, say that, okay, this is how I'm creating a thread, like from here, this, sparked an interest here, then I did this, and so I sort of take them through a journey as, what, your interest, and then how you explored it, and now what you want to do at university. So, yeah, that's kind of how I approached it, and just, yeah.
Anya, in your case, you did do the US applications, and I think you had a very interesting Common App essay. And I think it's helpful to share that topic with everybody because people don't think of, many students don't think it's worthwhile writing the Common App essay on something that may seem mundane or that doesn't contain achievement in it. But yours was really good, and incidentally, your content expert is also here in the audience today, Vijay. So why don't you tell us a bit about that essay and the process of coming up with that topic?
Yeah, so if you're in the 11th grade, you would have seen that the Common App has 7 sort of large overarching prompts. My essay fit into the prompt number 5, but that came way later in the process. In July of last year, Vijay messages me, hey Anya, do you want to start working on your Common App? What ideas do you have? Let's brainstorm. And getting on that call, I can tell you, I had no ideas. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to write about. And frankly, I didn't know enough about myself, I think, to write my Common App. The Common App, as I'm sure everyone else here can agree, it's an introspective experience because you do have to say, you have to put yourself out there as a student for all the AOs to see. And then about the end of July, I still didn't have an idea. I had these disparate, like, sort of one-liners that we'd made paragraphs of, but none of it was fitting into a larger 600-word essay. And then on my, so last August was my 18th birthday, and at the time I'd come up with the idea of writing letters to the closest people in my life on my 18th birthday as I was becoming an adult, reflecting on how they'd impacted my life. And so I took that was the model I took my Common App on. In my Common App, I wrote 4 letters to the closest people in my life, and that was my Common App. My AOs got to know me through those letters, and I did end up giving the closest people in my life physical letters as well, so I thought that was really cool. And it ended up fitting into the gratitude prompt because I was able to show that what I was thankful for, and I was able to show that while I am my own person, my journey was built by the people who supported me throughout the years, and I think that's something you really do need to acknowledge in your larger journey.
I think a risk that a student might run into a topic like that would be making that essay too much about the people you're writing to instead of yourself. So was that something that you had to work on, centering it on yourself rather than the recipients?
Yeah, definitely. I think I had about 3 drafts where Vijay was like, but talk about yourself. But talk about yourself. Don't talk about this other person. And it forced me to think of my life in a much more macro perspective, because I had to look beyond the individual connection I had with the people I was writing letters to and see how they had played a larger role in my life and how that had caused me to grow as a person. And I mean, I think with the Common App, you run into this dilemma where are you not talking enough about yourself? Are you talking more about your interests or this or that? And I think that's where Red Pen actually was the biggest help for me. And my mom was the best essay reviewer, and she has read my essays to filth before I submitted them. But just going through, and the Red Pen, even I think Shivani also ended up looking at my Common App. I'm not 100% sure about that.
She would have, I'm sure.
Yeah, she probably did. And just them dragging me back from this like deep end of like, okay, you've talked enough about the other people, but how do they impact you? And constantly causing me to question myself, my writing. And at the end of the day, I'm really proud of my Common App, but I think the Red Pen played a massive, massive role in centering my Common App into something that was coherent and also engaging for the AO to read, because a format like mine can get very dull and very repetitive, because it was like, okay, dear, 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 like that's not fun for an AO to read. But I was really able to differentiate myself through the letters. I had different anecdotes for different people I wrote letters to, and I really have to thank mainly Vijay, my content specialist, for that, because that Common App was a journey for sure.
Okay. No, that is very nice of you to acknowledge Vijay and TRP. Zanai, you had a really interesting essay for your Burnout supplemental, which you felt was a little controversial, but I don't think it was. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Burnout supplemental...
What is the supplemental, firstly?
Yeah, the prompt is that it asks you to have a conversation with somebody that you don't necessarily have the same opinion as. And so it asks you to then have a conversation with them. And because I play a lot of sports, I picked a swimmer from who participates in these games called the Enhanced Games, which, if you're not familiar, encourages substance use in order to quote-unquote unlock peak potential and break world records set legally. And so that was the person I picked after a lot of deliberation. And I won't go too much into the actual contents of my essay, but the reason why I picked the person was because I felt that a lot of people would use like common historical figures or political people or like maybe in that vein, but this was, I thought, was a really unique person to write about.
I want to cover interviews briefly. Namrata, you applied to Brown, and Brown does not do an alumni interview, but they do give you the opportunity to upload a 2-minute video about yourself.
Yeah.
So my question is, what was your video about, and how did that video complement the essays? Because Brown also has like 7 essays. So how did you use that to anchor maybe the other writing you had done?
Yeah, so what I ended up doing my video essay on was I actually wrote a song, but it was really funny because I don't know how to sing at all. Like anyone can tell you that. So it sort of became like a song about all my different contradictions almost. So the hook was, I love songs, but I can't sing. And then the body of the song, the verses, was all of the other contradictions about me. And I feel like it really worked because it was really funny, and at least I hope it was funny and engaging. And I got to incorporate some of my achievements and the work that I've done in the form of contradictions, and also just like my personality and my quirks. And I think Brown is also known as like the quirky school. So I'd worked to like like differentiate myself and create like a memorable experience for the admissions officer. So hopefully that they remembered my video after I did it.
What just out of curiosity, what was the joy essay about?
Yeah, so the Brown has an essay about joy, so something mundane or spectacular, they say, that brings you joy. So mine was actually about a chocolate chip cookie from my favorite cafe in Hyderabad. So I talked about all of the different people that I took with me to the cafe, and how much that cookie like brought me and the person with me joy, and how it sort of like marked important moments that I had with the people that were most important to me.
Awesome. Isha, your interview experience would have been quite different from the Brown. The Cambridge interview is quite intense and quite academic. So what do you get asked in a Cambridge psychology interview, and how do you prep for it?
So what I was asked, so basically I had to just prepare that I would be asked things I hadn't encountered before. I was asked, sort of vague questions where, like, design an experiment to test the influence of running or exercise on spatial memory. And it's, concepts you may not have come across before. And then they'll, backtrack and be like, oh, okay, so you did the experiment, but the results you got were not what you were expecting. Why do you think that's so? Then they started showing me graphs, and, they said, oh, explain the trends. And then there was a bit about statistics. And they're like, oh, why do you think, this is this? And then if this was this, then, why do you think that? So it was kind of a sort of an academic conversation that was just back and forth. And it was intimidating at the start, but I think when you slow down and you realize that this is probably one of the only chances you'll have to have such a conversation with someone who's an expert, who's at the top of their field, who's doing, world-class research, and you just enjoy that, I think it, just sort of, it slows you down and it helps you enjoy the experience. And the whole point of it is, again, not to have the right answer. They want to see curiosity. They want to see how you think. Something I had to become comfortable with was just saying, oh, I'm not sure, but here's how I would approach it. And the way to prepare is, I think, just having a lot of conversations about your subject, whether that can be with your subject teacher or listening to podcasts or, just reading books, getting a hang of talking about your subject, using the right terminology. I also had the chance to do a lot of mock interviews with the Red Pen, with, Oxford specialists and, people who had actually studied the course before me. So that I felt like I was decently prepared and I had somewhat of an idea going in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get to results, but before I get to results, I think this is maybe a slightly unpleasant part, but I think it's important to share with future applicants. All 8 of these students had exceptional profiles, academics, superb essays. I mean, the whole package was incredible. But statistically, despite checking every box, you are more likely, this process is just fraught with disappointment, right? So it didn't, eventually everything works out, but in the early round, you often get hit with a deferral or a rejection that you weren't expecting. But that's a pretty crucial time because that's mid-December, and then on 1st Jan, all the other applications are due. So Anahi, I know Penn was a result of pretty intense deliberation even in the early rounds. You finally, you put all your eggs in that basket, you do all this amazing research as you did. I'm sure you spent a lot of time working and refining those essays. But then when you get that deferral in mid-December, is it disappointing, and how do you get your head back in the game? How do you stay focused?
It's definitely disappointing because it's like your early decision's kind of your all or nothing. If that works out, you're completely done with the application process. But if not, you're suddenly on like a really short deadline to finish the rest of your applications. And I think that the time crunch is what kind of pushes you to get your head back in the game, because if you don't, like, the rest of your applications will kind of suffer for it. I think it's important to kind of get a head start. I think I had a lot of my essays for my regular decisions. I started them like late November before I even got the early decision result back, because otherwise I think it's quite impossible to polish everything up in just the 2-week deadline that you have. And I didn't make too many changes to my college list. I think you kind of have to, no matter what your early decision result is, whether it's a deferral or a rejection, you kind of have to have some confidence in your application and trust yourself not to over-tweak it or over-modify it. Otherwise, I think you could get stuck in a loop of just changing things. I did strengthen the community.
So don't go into a panic and change everything if you get deferred. Okay.
Definitely not. I did strengthen the community service aspect of my application, as I think that was something that was not as strong that I could have made stronger. So I did change that before my regular decisions. But other than that, I didn't tweak much.
I want to touch on two things related to applications, and then So obviously, when you get deferred, and Zanai, Anahi, and Arav, you guys got deferred in the early round, it's very important to stay in touch with the college you got deferred with and send updates, right? So Zanai, I'll start with you. You get the deferral from Stanford. What do you update them on in that form?
So Stanford is a bit different, I think. For most of the other deferrals, you have to write a letter yourself, but Stanford provides some fresh essay prompts that they want you to fill after you've been deferred. So for those essay prompts, luckily I had in November submitted my device for a competition called IRIS, which is the qualifier for the Intel Science Fair, which is like a very prestigious science competition. So luckily I qualified as a finalist for IRIS, which is something I was able to put in my application. But other than that, the deferral essays, more than achievement, it asks you about reflection. And so I just, it was a lot of reflecting to do. After having written all my regular decision essays and facing the disappointment of the deferral, like after all of that, it asks you how you've grown as a person. So yeah.
Okay. Arav, you also got the deferral from MIT in mid-December, and what was a little surprising for us, at least for me, maybe not for you, was that despite all these stupendous accomplishments, you were one of 3 kids from your school who applied to MIT in the early round, and the other 2 had gotten in. So again, this, I'm sure as for anybody, deferral is always difficult, but it's even more sort of, I guess, disappointing or worrying when other kids have already been admitted from your school. Now, don't say for the love of the game, but there's a lot of work. You hadn't started your Common App work until you got the MIT results. So you had the form to do, you had all the essays to do. So how do you stay focused, and what updates do you send to MIT along the way until March?
Okay, so like, first of all, yeah, certainly not for the love of the game in this case. And okay, but anyways, so like, yeah, I think that like, yeah, so I did do most of the heavy work for regular decision after mid of December. So that was kind of like frustrating that like, because of this deferral, like there is a lot more work I had to do. And what is even more frustrating is that in the end, I end up like getting in the regular action in MIT. So like, but yeah, so like I think that as far as update goes, so MIT has a form on called the February updates and notes form. In that you are able to like send any meaningful updates, and most importantly for grades, updates are optional, but there is a box where you can give them any of your updates. And so I sent a few. I think I sent like about some like
your JE rank and
yeah, like Oxford MET, if I recall correctly, and like JE results came a little bit after that. So then I sent.
You also mentioned a project that you hadn't mentioned to them in the mom is
Did
prompting
I?
us. Yes. So
Yeah.
as you can see, mom was a big help. So I think we're giving maybe too much credit to Arav now for the regulars. I think a lot of credit has to go to his mom, Aparna, who's here. But yeah, so in fact, to MIT there was one consolidated update, but to the other colleges, even after submitting regular, you sent 3 updates, you know, with JE and Olympiads and all of that.
Yes, correct. Like, yeah, I think for other colleges, but I think other colleges, yeah, I think regular decision deadline was around like first week of January, if I recall correctly. And yeah, most of these updates are sent around like mid-February to like first week of March. So yeah, I did send those by mails, and I think generally these colleges are like receptive towards like these.
Yeah. So I think what I'm trying to highlight here is that you know, there is always a standard process of sending updates. If you're deferred, you get one letter or there's a form. But if there are important enough updates, you can go beyond that. For example, Columbia, when they waitlist students in regular, they say, please only submit this one letter and don't send us anything else. But my only student who's ever been admitted off the waitlist at Columbia kept bombarding them with updates, relevant, meaningful updates, nothing, nothing kind of inflated or fabricated. But yeah, I think it's important to just stay in touch with colleges and let them know what's taken place after you've submitted or after they've given you a waitlist or a deferral decision. Okay, so I think that's the end of like the discussion, the panel discussion. I just want to close with a slightly fun exercise, which is like a little rapid fire. So we've got one question for all of you that you guys have not seen at all. So I'm going to ask each of you, and you're supposed to answer without thinking, and just tell us what comes to your mind. Okay, this is the end, the conclusion of our panel discussion. So Zanai, every student should try a sport because?
It's fun, and honestly, it's really fun when you fail. Like.
When you fail in sports?
Sometimes. It's about the journey, actually. Like, sports teaches you that it's about the journey and not your actual achievement.
So you mean to say for the love of the game?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's a theme here. Suhani, the best way to set yourself apart in MUN is?
To not use AI. I think AI gives very generic solutions and responses, and to like use your own brains and creativity.
Okay. Arav, if a student loves math, what should they focus on first?
I would say like general problem solving and ad hoc problems that don't require any like theory and.
Okay. Isha, admissions essays or admission interviews, and why?
I would say interviews, because I guess essays, they tell the admissions officers who you've been over the past few years, but I think interviews, it tells them who you are right now. It gives them a better sense of who your authentic self truly is.
So and were they more fun for you to do?
Yeah, I enjoyed the interview.
Despite being a very good writer. Okay, that's something. Anya, the most stressful part about the college application journey is?
Managing the IB alongside it. I think that the college application journey as a whole, it is tense for sure, but doing it alongside the IB it's a transformation of yourself, and you go beyond the capabilities you thought your limits were.
Okay. Arzu, the most fun part about the college application journey is?
I think brainstorming essay ideas was something I had a lot of fun with, because I got to talk to a lot of people. My family also helped me a lot, and it's a very introspective journey, and you learn a lot about yourself also when you're answering all these different prompts. So I think brainstorming essay ideas and coming up with like unique creative ideas, and everyone kind of just supports you in your ideas and doesn't say like, no, you can't write about this. So that was really fun.
Okay. Anahi, what's one thing you wish you'd known before starting this journey?
How unpredictable the actual outcomes can be. Like everyone, the 1 year-long process can be very similar for people in the sense that the amount of effort, hard work you put, like I think all of us may put in a lot of work, but then outcomes can vary.
That's very important. I think we've touched on it a little bit earlier, but thank you. Last one, Namrita. Your favorite thing about working with the Red Pen?
Jayashri, my counselor, she was the best. And then of course Elisha and Gayatri after as well.
That's awesome. Jayashri is our favorite too. Okay guys, that's our panel discussion. Can we have a big hand for our panelists once again, please? Thank you.